Welcome everybody, and thank you for attending the TVision webinar series. Just a few housekeeping rules. All attendees will be on mute and will remain for the whole webinar. Please use the question box to ask any questions related to the topic. All questions will be answered after the demo. If we run out of time, or if the question requires a longer answer, then the question will be answered offline directly. Use the chat box for any questions related to the actual webinar. So for example, if you can't hear or if the presenter is going too fast. Please note that a link to view the webinar recording will be sent to all attendees after the demo. So this is the TVision Top 5 Things webinar. We've picked out a small amount of key areas to focus on for the various parts of NAV. This is the fourth in the webinar series so far, and you can sign up for one, some or all. We will be sending out emails to register, and I'll show you a list of the webinars at the end. You can also register on our website, or you can click on the link in our monthly newsletter. So my name is Karen, and I'll be facilitating the demo today. I'm an account manager here at TVision, and my background is 17 years of software account management experience for ERP companies. Ian's going to be doing the demo today, and he is a support consultant at TVision. He's been working at TVision for about 1.5 years and has been using NAV since 2000. So this webinar is about the 5 add-ons that we've created here at TVision. Over the years, we've developed some functionality for clients which we believe are suitable for most companies using NAV. So we packaged up these add-ons and made them available to all. These add-ons are designed to automate repetitive manual tasks or add in a piece of functionality that can save a lot of time. So these add-ins are GL import, credit control notepad, drag and drop, expenses to use within the jobs functionality, and table dimensions and data synchronization. So before the demo, I'd like to do a quick poll to see which tasks you currently find most frustrating in NAV. If you could choose an answer, and that would be great. So I'm going to launch it now. Just give everybody a tiny bit longer just to vote. Okay, so the results are, so far, it's pretty even split between, first of all, we've got 50% trying to match up copied documents. And then we have an even split between the other two, which is entering the same information into multiple areas, and also copy and pasting journal lines from Excel. Okay, so I'm now going to hand over to Ian, who's going to go through these key add-ons in NAV. Just a reminder, please use the question box if you do wish to ask a question, and these will be answered after the demo.
Hi, thanks Karen. Anybody who's very observant will see me hitting play at the bottom there. Usually I do these demos live, but because I'm using 5 databases today to demo 5 different things, I've pre-recorded. I'm going to talk over the top. Let's get cracking and let's chat about timesheets and expenses. So within NAV, standard NAV has timesheets, and we have taken them, we have just tweaked them a little bit. And we've also added the ability to record expenses that will go with those timesheets. So anybody who's familiar with the standard NAV will recognize half of what I'm going to speak about. This uses standard jobs, resources, items, customers, timesheets that you're used to. All we've done is we've kind of put them together. So if you open timesheets, and let's just take any timesheet here, we'll open this one. And as you're familiar with, the user would come in, they'd say which job they've been working on, put in some text, what they were doing, and they put in the number of hours that they worked on that job. Then they come, maybe they worked on another job, and they put in the hours for that job for each day of the week, and they'd add as many lines as they need. It's not necessarily just jobs that they're working on, they might be recording absence, or they might be working on a service. And what we can do, we can put a bit of logic behind this. So, you know, we can say that they have to book 40 hours before they can complete the timesheet. and logic such as that. When they're finished, they would go up there and click that submit button and pass it on to their manager or their supervisor. So let's go and have a see what the manager sees. He sees a list of all the timesheets on the system. He looks at the ones that he needs to see, and he opens it up. Let's just make that a little bit bigger so we can see everything. He can check the details, and based on shift patterns and whatever rules he has, he can choose whether to approve or reject. If he rejects, obviously it goes back to the end user. If he approves, then it's in a state ready to be finished off. So our administrator would come along and look at the approved timesheets. And from here, they would raise sales invoices for customers or purchase payments for the contractor or employee to get their pay for the job. With this add-on, we've got 3 role centers. At the moment, I'm looking at the administrator's role center. There's 2 more. There's one for the managers who are approving timesheets and one for the end users who are capturing their hours. They all look slightly different. They all show the information that's important to them. And it doesn't have to be a Windows view, it can be a web view as well, which is very nice. We'll chat about that just now. Let's go and have a look at expenses. And expenses uses the same logic that the timesheets use. So we get a list of expenses. They have statuses from new, submitted, awaiting processing, and completed. So we can filter this view and have a look at the expenses that have been captured on the system. Let's open up one of these expense sheets. And here the user would create a new expense sheet. Let's say for which period does this apply? And then they'd enter the lines for their various expenses they're wanting to claim. And we have 2 main types, mileage and other out-of-pocket expenses. If it's mileage, the user just puts in the number of miles they've worked. If it's out-of-pocket expense, then they'll say what it was for, parking, gifts or food or whatever, and they put in the amount. From working foreign currencies, and it would follow all the normal rules that NAV would follow for foreign currency transactions. If they've entered miles, then we do have a button up at the top for calculate mileage, which will use rules. And we also have this import button. So if the user has scanned a copy of their invoice or receipt, they can use this to import it and attach it to this claim. So I'm just going to attach a PDF document. This is not a receipt, by the way. It's just a document I created. It's there stored in the database, and anyone else who can get to this point, they can open that document and review it. So the manager can read that receipt and decide whether, once it's been submitted, he'll decide does he want to approve or reject. Much the same as he would do with a timesheet, so that same logic is carried through. And then once it's been approved, the administrator would come, they would filter this list, find the ones that have been completed, and then they'd act further to generate the purchase payment for that employee or contractor. These screens, as I said, they can be presented as web pages, so you don't need to give every employee who's capturing timesheets a computer with NAV installed. They can do it from their tablet at home. They can log into your secure website. They could capture their hours. The managers, again, they don't need to have NAV installed on their computer. They can be using also the web browser in their office to access NAV and do these approvals. And one very nice thing for capturing the timesheets and approving the timesheets, a limited license is good enough. So you don't have to buy a full-blown NAV user license for every person that's going to be using your system, which does save quite a bit of money. Next one we're going to look at is the GL import functionality. We call it GL import functionality. We might call it journal import as well, because that's where we use it. I'm going to open up a general journal here. And it's a standard journal, and if you've got repetitive journals, what you often end up doing is up on the ribbon, use that send it to Excel button, or you might highlight the rows and copy and paste into Excel. And then you work in Excel instead of working on this screen. Plenty of people do it. I've done that already here, and I've created my journal in Excel instead of doing it in NAV. A pretty standard type of journal, but one thing I do want you to notice is the order of the columns here. I've got the posting groups first, and then I've put the amount after the posting groups. If you look at my journal in NAV, I've got the amount first and then the posting groups. Now, if I was doing copy and paste, that's going to fail because they're in the wrong order. And this is one of the nice features of this GL import tool, as you'll see now. You click the button, you tell it which Excel file you want to import. Pretty simple so far. You can have multiple sheets in that workbook. You tell it which sheet you want to import, and you can tell it how many rows or heading rows, so it knows not to try and import them. And it doesn't have to come to this general journal. It can come to any journal. Here I will tell it which journal to go and put this lines into. And I have this beautiful mapping code. And these are tables which say how to translate my Excel columns into columns on my NAV journal. For this one, I'm using mapping 2. As soon as I say OK, it says it's found some new columns. So you'll notice deferral code and comment are columns up here. And my mapping table, I haven't told it how to map those. I'm not going to be using them in this journal, so it's OK, I'll just ignore them. And I say OK, it tells me from Excel to NAV how it's going to map the columns to each other. As soon as I'm happy, I say OK. And it's added 14 lines to my journal, and it's brought them from that Excel spreadsheet. You might recognize the descriptions. And notice it didn't get confused by me reordering the columns, where I had the posting groups first and then the amount, and here it's managed to figure out the amount goes in the amount column and the posting groups go in their respective columns. It's a very nice tool. The normal rules of journals do apply, of course. So just because I've clicked the import button, it doesn't mean it's been checked or anything. I've still got to give it my reasonableness checks, you know, make sure that all the information is here. But the nice thing is, as I'm working through the month and I'm changing the order of the columns in my journals, adding columns, taking them away, at the end of the month, if I'm using the import from Excel, the GL import tool, those mapping tables tell the system how to map my Excel to NAV, so it never gets confused. It always works. I don't have to, you know, always have my columns in a specific order for this to work. So I'm looking at this journal. I'm pretty much happy with everything that I'm seeing after I've done my import. Last thing to do is get down to that bottom right-hand corner, check that it adds up to 0. Yep, once I've done that, I can post. And we'll follow the normal rules that would be followed by NAV for posting journals. This is a good point now to talk about our synchronization tool. This is not something that I can really show you, so I'm going to tell you about it. I want you to imagine the situation where you have more than one company on your NAV database. Perhaps you've got a couple of subsidiaries and one parent company where you do the reporting, or maybe you have 3 or 4 branches all over the continent. There's information between those companies that you want to keep consistent, you want to keep identical. And typically, because we've been talking about finance there, the chart of accounts. You want all of your companies to have an identical chart of accounts so that at the end of the month, you can just add them together and it makes your financial reporting so much easier. But there might be other information that is shared between your companies. If you're a wine seller, you might have branches all over the country, but every branch is selling the same products. So, you know, I have them as separate companies in NAV. If I have a new product in branch A, I want that product to be available in all my other branches. And it's a real pain to go from company to company to company, capturing the same information again and again and again. You might be a financial company, in which case you've got resources and customers and vendors that you might be sharing between companies. And perhaps you want to keep those synchronized so that all of your companies can use the same information and have the same structure to their data. One area where it's really important, obviously, is dimensions. So, come the end of the month, you don't want, if you've got 4 companies, they've all added new dimensions and they're all pointing at different things. You want them to have the same dimensions. Let's have a look at a chart of accounts. It might make more sense. So I've got a chart of accounts here. I've got the account numbers and the descriptions, and I can set up my system so that if we enter a new account, it's going to propagate around all my companies. But say I've got an office in France. They've got the account numbers here. They're looking at the account descriptions, and these mean nothing to people in France. They would like to see French descriptions. We can set the system so that if they change the name on the account, it doesn't propagate. If they add a new account, then it does. So it's a very customizable system. Next thing we're going to talk about is a thing called table dimensions. And you may have a reporting requirement, especially if you've got a BI system in place, that you have dimensions on every customer, or every item, or every vendor. And this is just a tool that ensures that it happens from the start. So we set it up for you, and based on some rules, we create dimensions. Let's have a look at this customer number 125. We'll just make them a bit bigger. The customer number 125, whenever I create a customer, I always want a dimension, EWS dimension, with the same customer number, just so that my BI solution has that dimension available as one of the slices. And this is a tool that we would use to ensure that that always happens. Now, this is a very simple one. I'm just going to copy the customer's number to this dimension. We can make them a little bit more complicated. Let's create a new customer. So here we've created customer number 840. There's only one mandatory field. Let me just put this in. So it's a brand new customer, creating him now, XYZ call. And as soon as I look at my dimensions, you will notice by default a new dimension has been created and put against this customer, so that when he goes to my BI solution or my reporting solution, that dimension is going to be there as one of the available measures within my reporting system. As I say, it doesn't have to be as simple as just copying the customer number. We can put in a more complicated rule. So based on a payment type or an invoicing rule, or perhaps the customer's region, we can change those dimensions to suit whatever your requirements are. Next thing I want to talk to you about is a very nice drag and drop. This is kind of a middle of the road solution if you want to manage documents. Here I've got sales invoices highlighted, and with sales invoices, sometimes there's a backup document that goes with them. Perhaps the customer faxed through an order, or maybe they filled out an order form or whatever. We've got this nice box on the right-hand side here, in amongst the fact boxes, called drop files. So you could grab that file that the customer sent through to you, or scan it into your system, and you can drop it there into the fact boxes. And it works just like all the other fact boxes. That information sits with that transaction. We're looking at it on the list view. So yeah, you just drag a file across. I'm dragging a PDF there. You let it go, and it's saved within your NAV database. It's not relying on a shared folder somewhere on the network and pointing to that location. It's actually within the database, so anybody who logs in can view it. And this is a very customizable solution. So you notice here on items, I don't have that drag and drop functionality for this company, but for customers, I do have the drag and drop. So this is more of a financial company. We're not interested in items. But every customer, perhaps we've got a contract or a payment terms plan or something that we've agreed with them, service level agreement perhaps. Every time we've got one of these documents, we might want to store it against the customer master. We will drop it there, and it will be available for anyone who comes in. If you were a company that used items, You might be interested in putting drag and drop on your items to instructions for handling hazardous materials, or if you're a wine merchant, tasting notes that go with a particular wine or something. There might be interesting documents that you want to drag and drop there. Also, resources or your employees, perhaps an emergency contact form or something like that. Anywhere where you've got information in your system that you want some backup documents to go with it, drag and drop's a nice solution. It is better than pointing at a shared drive. It doesn't depend on my securities for those folders. And it doesn't go to the depths of importing documents and trying to use OCR to scan them. If we're looking at jobs, another good example, every time if you use jobs, there's loads of documents that go with them. There's the initial contract with the customer, the scope of work, the project plan, the change requests that happen. You sending invoices to the customer. It's nice to have all of those documents in one place. You come into NAV, there they are, you can open them up, answer customers' questions. After that, we've got one left. This is Credit Control Notepad. Again, this comes with its own role center. And it uses a lot of standard NAV functionality, just tweaked a little bit. So this role center has got menus that apply to you, and it has the My Customers box. You might be familiar with it. We've taken it and we've just enhanced it a little bit. So as well as a customer's balance, we're also seeing some aging bands. So we've got an overview of this customer's account. From my home screen, I can keep an eye on my key customers. And this is fully customizable. I can change those periods. I've got them for months. It can be changed to weeks. I can add new customers. I can manage a list of customers that I'm watching. I also get a to-do box. We'll talk about those a little just now. And we get some KPIs. So here's the aged debt reports at the bottom. Give me some targets. And there's a chart telling me where that debt is, foreign or local. So I've got these key accounts that I'm looking at, and traditionally if you open up a customer account, you get information about that customer. Same thing happens here. We can open up one of our customers. We see some information, and this is a very boring screen. And it's boring because this customer has zero balance. Here's a more interesting customer with a few transactions, and suddenly when I open him up, I'm seeing the information about this customer in a way that makes sense to someone with accounts receivable. So I don't have to go somewhere else to go and find the transactions. Here they are presented to me when I open up the customer by default, very nicely. Anything that's overdue, highlighted in red. So at a glance, I can see what's going on with this customer. And up on the ribbon, I've got some key tests, so I can generate a sales credit or a sales invoice for this customer and kind of do all those activities that I need to do to get this account moving. We also log interactions. Anybody who's used interactions in NAV, it can be a little bit painful sometimes. There's a lot of screens you have to go to, and you have to answer quite a few questions. I think it's 4 screens just to log one interaction. Usually when we modify something, we add to it. In this case, we simplified it by taking away a lot of that complexity. So to create an interaction now, some very basic information, date and time, the description is compulsory, everything else is optional, all the way down to adding notes about it. You do that, you click OK, and the interaction is logged. So, we've spoken to this customer, we emailed the customer, whatever it might be. And all those interactions, they appear here very nicely. You can see when you've been speaking to this customer. Now, those interactions, they don't just have to be when we phoned the customer or emailed the customer. We'll look at this one, and we can see we've issued a reminder to this customer. So we can set up the system so that when NAV generates a document, sales invoice, credit memo, in this case a reminder, we can add it onto the interaction log so that I'm sitting in accounts receivable or credit control. I can immediately come in. I can see the communication that has happened between us and this customer, and it's all in one place, which just makes it so much easier. We also have the to-dos, and this is standard NAV to-dos. Again, all we've done is we've made them simpler, made them more usable. So looking at the Canon group, their account's a mess. Perhaps I want to assign a to-do to someone, or even to myself, to say, give these guys a telephone call to find out what's happening. So I come in here, and it's a much simpler view of to-dos than you would get with standard NAV. So, very basically a description, what type of to-do, what's the status, and we have the option of creating new ones, assigning them to someone else. They would come in and they would see the number of to-dos that are assigned to them, click on the button, and it shows them what they need to do. On any of them, they can go into them. When they've completed the task, they would say closed. It would end up with a tick and it would remove itself from the list. And again, this is a very nice way of enhancing what's already there in NAV. On the home screen, you can turn on your notifications so that when you log in, you can see that somebody's giving you the to-do, or you can just use those blue buttons that you saw. It's nice, it's simple, it helps the credit controller get their job done. So those are the main ones that we have. If any of them are of interest to you, give your friendly consultant a call, and we're willing to talk about them, or get in contact with Karen, and she can talk you through them in a little bit more detail. Karen, did anybody shoot through any questions?
Right, okay. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, please use the question box. We'll just give you a minute or so, and then we'll start answering them.
Okay, so one very interesting question is on encryption. So obviously data protection's high on people's minds at the moment. That on the drag and drop functionality, if you drag in a file and you drop it, that could very easily be an encrypted file. So if you want to save your PDFs with encryption, or you want to save things in a zip file with encryption, you can drag them in and you can drop them using the standard drag and drop functionality. It doesn't have to be a plain text file. And again, an Excel spreadsheet, you can use your Excel protect worksheet functionality to stop people opening it with a simple password. You can still import that into the system. So encryption is a possibility on the documents that you pull in. And if you really wanted to, we could enhance the system even more by applying some encryption to documents that you put in the system. There is another question. How do you navigate to the credit controller notepad? The credit controller notepad, once you have that installed on your system, we give you the role center that when you log on, you're automatically in the credit control notepad. If you have credit control notepad on your system and you're struggling to get there, please give our support desk a call and we will help you out with that, no problem. And how does drag and drop replace simply attaching a document? It doesn't. It just makes it a lot easier. Drag and drop is what we're used to nowadays, and it's also a lot simpler if you're working on multiple screens. Drag it from one screen, drop it onto the screen you're working in, drag an Outlook conversation across without having to save it in the interim. All these things are possible with drag and drop. You can do it using attaching a document. It's a few more steps. You have to open that selection, which file do you want to import. If that works for you, that's fine. Drag and drop is just one of those tools that makes it a little bit simpler and more convenient.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Ian. So I'd like to leave you with the 5 key takeaways about the add-ons, which will hopefully assist you when considering if any are useful for your business. So first of all, it's a good idea to kind of understand what is available within your current version of NAV. Is it sufficient, or can any of our add-ons provide any more efficiency? So what you might consider doing is perhaps make a list of the most repetitive tasks. There might be the more manual ones, or ones which are kind of regular but very important that you're having some issues with. Also maybe list some gaps in your processes. And then, as Ian was saying, have a chat with one of the TVision consultants and see, would existing functionality be just needed to be set up in the software? Would it be a TVision add-on, or would it, be more enhanced third-party solutions? TVision add-ons are within NAV. So it is just a case of, half a day to a couple of days work that we would have to do to install it. There's no need to get kind of external third-party solutions. TVision add-ons also save on development costs because these are packaged add-ons that with a set price, and we have been installing them in clients for a number of years, so we know that they work well. Also, these add-ons do fit nicely into your existing processes, so saving time on your manual tasks. Okay, well, we hope you found this webinar interesting and informative. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the fourth in our webinar series. We will be sending out emails soon to register for the next one, and we'll also put a reminder in the newsletter too. There is a page on our website for webinars and events. So if you want to download any of the previous webinars and view them, then that is the link to do so. But like I said, we will be sending out a link later on. If you do have any questions or any feedback, please email me there at marketing@tvision.co.uk. So I'm going to close the session now. A survey will appear. It would be great if you could respond with some feedback. So thank you very much.